Welcome to the Big Fellas Podcast, where we chop it up about all things past, present, and future about the game of basketball. Where facts, stats, and context reign supreme.
That is blasphemous!
Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. Get ready to learn from players, coaches, and fans from all levels of the game and see the court in a brand new way. And now, fresh off the sidelines, here's your host, John Hartofilis.
What it do, fellas, and welcome to the Big Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, JH, coming to you from New York City, the mecca of basketball. Today, I'm joined by the two hosts of the Bonafide Scrubs podcast, Noah Levine and Will Swankie. We've got a good one in store for you today, fellas. Episode number 4, Kevin Garnett, Passion Personified. Noah and Will, what's going on, fellas?
What's up? JH, man. Thanks for having us on.
We're going to break down Kevin Garnett, Mr. USA Basketball, and won the McDonald's All-American Game MVP in 1995. He was drafted straight out of high school with the 5th pick by the Minnesota Timberwolves in the 1995 NBA draft. After spending 12 seasons with them, he was traded to the Boston Celtics to form their Big Three in 2007. After that, he was dealt to the Brooklyn Nets in 2013 in one of the worst trades of all time before heading back to finish his career where it started in Minnesota for one last season in 2015. KG was an NBA champion in 2008, an MVP in 2004, NBA Defensive Player of the Year in 2008. He was a 15-time All-Star and won the All-Star Game MVP in 2003, 4-time All-NBA First Teams in 2000, 2003, 2004, and 2008, 3 times on the second team and 2 times on the third team. He was a 9-time All-Defensive First Team selection, winning it from 2000 to 2005, 2008, 2009, and 2011, with 3 selections on the All-Defensive Second Team. KG was the rebounding champion in 4 straight seasons from 2004 to 2007 and won a gold medal in the 2000 Olympics. KG is also the only player ever to average 20, 10, and 5 for 6 straight seasons from 1999 to 2005, as well as the only player to average 20, 10, and 4 for 9 consecutive seasons from 1998 to 2007. He's one of only 5 players to lead his team in all 5 statistical categories, which he did in 2003. The others being Dave Cohen, Scottie Pippen, LeBron James, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's one of 4 players to win the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, with the other 3 being David Robinson, Michael Jordan, and Hakeem Olajuwon. So that being said, what do you guys want to hit on first?
Yeah, as you were reading off a lot of statistics and what he accomplished, John, I think it says a lot about Garnett as an offensive player and a defensive player, because it's funny, he was drafted out of hisschool in 1995. He kind of started that trend again. Most people played 4 years in college, and Moses Malone and Daryl Dawkins got drafted out of high school in the 80s, but it wasn't really a thing until Garnett got drafted. He was a prominent McDonald's All-American. He got drafted really high, and it looked like he panned out basically with his career.
Yeah, and being drafted to the Minnesota Timberwolves, a franchise that doesn't have very many notable players, I think he really is, that guy for that team. And he really was able to turn them around, basically right away. They went to a Western Conference Finals under him, and he really was just a leader. He's obviously a very passionate player, as the title of this episode, insinuates. So a very good franchise player, especially for, Minnesota in the beginning, and then on to Boston. He was also able to fit with those other championship caliber pieces.
Definitely. Really good points for you guys to hit on. Will, what you were saying about them being a terrible franchise and not having a lot of notable players, they really were fighting with the Clippers until just recently for the worst franchise of all time. Since then, they've missed the playoffs every single year since Garnett left, outside of winning 1 game against the 2017 Rockets. Really, for the most part, he really was the heart and soul of the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise. On to some what ifs. What do you guys think happens if the Timberwolves kept Ray Allen with the 5th pick in 96 instead of trading him straight up for Stephon Marbury, who was the 4th pick in that draft?
Yeah, well, Garnett didn't really have a second wheel in Minnesota. They both played in the Celtics and won a championship. Timberwolves, they may have made the finals because they made the West Finals in 2004. They lost to the Kobe and Shaq Lakers.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm looking at both Marbury and Ray's stats in the first couple of years of their career, and Marbury was, right on par with Ray, if not better. Definitely better in his rookie year, averaging more points, more assists, but also in the next couple of years, got to up to over 20 points per game. So, maybe Ray's play style could have fit the Timberwolves team a little bit better. But I think Marbury definitely, he offered a lot right at the beginning of his career.
Awesome. They're great points to hit on. What do you guys think happens if Kevin McHale trades into the Lakers in 2007? Being an all-time Celtics great, couldn't stand trading him to the Lakers.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting, what if scenario, because they won 2 championships under Powell. They could have maybe gone to, 4, even 5 championships if you pair players as great as Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant together on the Lakers.
If you think about if the Lakers won 08, Kobe three-peats, he wins 08, 09, 2010. I think we look at him differently, and he may be even closer to Jordan or higher up on people's all-times lists because Kobe three-peated with Shaq, and then he three-peated on his own. He would have 6 rings. That would definitely move Kobe up higher all time, would make his legacy even better.
If he were to win those 3 rings and three-peat, I think that would really solidify him at that 2 spot because Karl Malone has 0. Dirk won his lone one in 2011. And I feel like at that point, it really kind of solidifies him in that upper echelon of power forwards right behind Tim Duncan at 5. And maybe even he has a much better argument against Tim Duncan. So, guys, next up, we wish we could bring back. I really want to see just someone with the maniacal intensity that KG has. Russell Westbrook has some of that, but KG really just made everyone think he was crazy. It really showed that he just loved every minute of being out there on the floor. What else would you guys want to bring back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the intensity and the competitiveness of KG and of the era that he played in is definitely something that's missed today in the NBA. Also, with Garnett, the sort of the defensive prowess that has been missed over the past couple of years. We have, the physicality of the NBA has definitely gone down since, the end of the 2010s. And I think that's something also that would make the game a lot more exciting. And it could also lead to the intensity that we've also been missing.
Yeah, the game, it's like it's seeing less and less physical. Garnett, like he play with passion and emotion. We don't really see that of a lot of players. Like,
next up, we have the replaceability rating. Hypothetically, no time to prepare. It's game night. KG can't play. Do you guys think anyone can walk through that door and play in his style and kind of fill that void that KG would be leaving?
I mean, maybe this player is, too much of an all-star or too much of a superstar, but I was going to think about Anthony Davis as a player that brings a lot like KG. Obviously, his defensive prowess, averaging, multiple blocks a season, definitely can anchor the paint for any team. And he also can step outside and hit, mid-range jumpers and even three-pointers now, as many other big men can do in today's era. So, Anthony Davis definitely is a player that I think plays a lot like Garnett now.
KG is also infamously in the 25K, 10K, 5K, and double 1.5K club. He's the only player ever to total 25,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 5,000 assists, and 1,500 steals and 1,500 blocks for his career. Now, because it's the Big Fellas podcast and we always keep it real, I do have to mention that LeBron's going to crush that in absolutely everything but blocks because he's currently sub 1,000 in that. But when it comes to points, assists, definitely, LeBron's definitely going to shatter that. So when his career is all said and done, KG might not be the only member in this club, but it's definitely somebody to revel in the fact that he did kind of fill the stat sheet in every way possible.
That's pretty impressive considering, he didn't really have the ball in his hands that much, bringing it up the court and operating on the perimeter. He's more of like a post-up, back to the basket, a rebounder kind of guy. And the fact that he was still able to get, up over 5,000 assists, 1,500 steals, it just shows the versatility of his game. And you also bring up LeBron. I mean, LeBron, he's in the running for 40K, 10K, and 10K. So that would be really amazing if he could accomplish that.
Like, I didn't realize how good of a passer he was. Like, he averaged 5 assists in his MVP year. He averaged a lot of assists. Like, this guy could pass, he could rebound, he could score. Like, he could kind of do it all. And he was a 6'11" guy that could like move like a guard at the same time. It's just incredible how skilled he was. And I feel like this generation doesn't really know that.
In terms of what would we consider the KG game, I think we should look no further than Game 7 of the 2004 Western Conference semifinals against the Kings. That was the only Game 7 win in Timberwolves history, and it was the last time they ever won a series. What were your biggest takeaways kind of from looking into that game?
Well, you have here in our notes here for the show that it was a low-scoring game, 83-80, and Garnett had 32 points. So he was responsible for nearly half the points that the Timberwolves score, which is, it really shows, their roster wasn't really up to par. He also had 21 rebounds in this game. That's pretty impressive, and 5 blocks and 4 steals, going back to his versatility of his entire career, really on display in this game.
Yeah, Garnett was a beast. It really shows he just put the team on his back here. He didn't really have that many great teammates. Sam Cassell did score 23. Sprewell had 14. Wally Zerbiak, shout out to Wally, working for MSG in the Knicks now. And a guy named Trent Hassel had 4 points. And the Timberwolves really ended up wasting Garnett's career. This could have been maybe the one run they had a chance to break through, and they didn't.
It's interesting, too. Doug Christie for the Kings had 20+, but outside of that, Vlade Divac had 7, and Mike Bibby and Pedro had 0. So it was definitely a defensive slug match, and KG both was responsible for that and also did his work on the offensive end to bring the Timberwolves the W. So my last question for you guys, do you guys think KG played in the right era? Was he too early, too late, or just right?
I think it's just right. because now like the game is evolving. Kevin Garnett really couldn't shoot threes. That was the only weakness you could say. I mean, maybe he would have practiced threes if he played in this era. That game was more back to the baskets still in the 2000s, like him and Duncan battled, him and Shaq, him and like Dirk. Now like every team wants to go small and spread the floor. I mean, Garnett could punish the smaller players down low, but you don't really need a great power forward or center to win in the NBA today, as we've seen. You need wings and guards.
Yeah, I'll agree with Noah. I think it is just right. He got in the league in the late 90s. If he gets in any earlier, he's just going to run into the Michael Jordan wall, regardless of, how great he is or, whatever team he ends up on. Pretty hard to overcome playing against Michael Jordan. And then if he gets in any later, he didn't know was bringing it up. The game is sort of shifted away from his style of play, especially a player like Garnett who feeds on, his intensity and his competitiveness. The game today really isn't, suited for that as much. And he might really be an outlier. I do think his era is just right for him.
As we all know, fellas, all good choppers must come to an end. That's all for today's episode. Special thanks to Noah and Will for coming on today. I know I loved every second of it, and I hope you fellas enjoyed it too.
Well, it was great meeting you, John, and thank you for having us on. We'll definitely collab more in the future since all three of us are very big basketball fans. It's definitely great to see where our podcast can grow.
Yeah, absolutely. John, thanks so much for having us on. And everybody make sure to check out the Bonafide Scrubs podcast. You can check us out on Instagram, also at the Bonafide Scrubs. We post a lot of content from our show each and every day, so make sure to follow us there. And also make sure to stay tuned for John's episode. We'll have him on the Bonafide Scrubs sometime in the future. Love to talk some basketball with you over there.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Big Fellas Podcast. Check us out on all major social media platforms at Big Fellas Pod to join the chop up. You can also listen to us on every podcast platform on the planet. Stay tuned for the next episode, Big Fellas.